At some point in the months following Abraham Lincoln's death at the hands of the assassin John Wilkes Booth, an undated fragment of manuscript was found amongst Lincoln's papers. It has become known as Fragment on the Constitution and Union. Most scholars believe it was composed after December of 1860, most probably sometime in January of 1861. It may have been composed as a response to former Georgia Congressman and future Vice President of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens. Stephens wrote to Abraham Lincoln as Lincoln waited in Springfield, Illinois, to take the oath of office, scheduled for March of 1861. Stephens' letter is dated December 30th, 1860, some 10 days after South Carolina has seceded from the Union. If Lincoln is composing this fragment in January of 1861, then 5 more states will have seceded by the end of the month. Stephens' letter to Lincoln is essentially a plea to Lincoln to make a public statement to diffuse the volatile situation brewing between North and South. Stephens makes use of a Bible verse from Proverbs 25:11, which, as a student of the Bible, would have been well known to Lincoln, by stating, "A word fitly spoken by you now would be like apples of gold in pictures of silver." The fragment discovered in Lincoln's hand appears to be a note to himself and provides us an example that illuminates the Lincoln process, a process he used throughout his life, especially from 1854 to 1865, where he attempts to grapple with and get down on paper his positions on a wide range of topics over several months and sometimes years. It is quite possible that Abraham Lincoln, in that 11-year gestation period, did more than any other American statesman before or since to link the Declaration and the Constitution together and ease the tension between the two, tension that had only been worsened by the ruling of the Taney Court in 1857, which had effectively institutionalized slavery in America through the Dred Scott decision. Although the reference to this particular Bible verse is never seen in any letters or formal speeches or used in any extemporaneous way, this fragment contains ideas and references that Lincoln continues to shape over the years as he attempts to crystallize his thoughts and his position. Lincoln begins his reflection by writing, "All this is not an accident. This republic is not an accident, but a rational choice, in direct opposition to chance and fortune, as may have been the case in all prior examples." Lincoln says it has a philosophical cause. It's philosophical in the sense that origins of the republic are rooted in lofty ideals, ideals like people are the ones that are vested with power, and people have liberty and they have equality. These are abstract propositions, they're not legalities. Lincoln continues by saying, without the Constitution and the Union, we could not have attained this result. But even these are not the primary cause of our great prosperity. There is something behind them, there's something in back of these that's entwining or wrapping itself more closely about the human heart. That something is the principle of liberty to all, the principle that clears the path for all, gives hope to all, and, by consequence, enterprise and industry to all. Here, Lincoln is beginning to pull together all of the threads of a doctrine that will be fully functional by the summer of 1861 in his message to Congress, although he continues to refine this message right through to the Gettysburg Address and beyond, where the Declaration is reborn. Liberty, equality, prosperity through the fruits of one's own labor for all, based on the eternal primacy of one document, the Declaration of Independence. The ideas and principles proposed in the Declaration are the ones that entwine our hearts. And the expression of that, or those principles, was most happy and fortunate. Without this, as well as with it, we could have declared our independence of Great Britain. But without it, we could not, I think, have secured our free government and our consequent prosperity. Why does Lincoln find it necessary to have this argument, to elevate the Declaration above the Constitution and the Union, and use it to form the basis of his whole argument against slavery? Because Lincoln, as an attorney, understood that you never concede any argument or rhetorical ground to your opponent. You never let your opponent dictate the terms of the argument. The South and the Confederacy and the Constitutional Unionists and Northern Republicans saw things through the lens of the Constitution. In his farewell address to the Senate in the January of 1861, Jefferson Davis suggests that the doctrine of universal equality applies only to men of the political community. Alexander Stephens, in his cornerstone address of March of 1861, in which he laid out the foundations of the Confederacy, he states flatly that Jefferson was fundamentally wrong in principle when he wrote that all men are created equal. He says that the great truth is that the Negro is not equal to the white man, not socially, not morally, not politically. Slavery and subordination is his natural condition. And Stephen Douglas, the senator from Illinois, thinks that it's a self-evident lie. This viewpoint was not just held by those at the top. Consider this example from a letter by John Halliburton in response to his cousin Juliet as she tried to convince him that the Declaration held some merit. He says, "The Declaration must be treated with caution. Why, if we had to do as the Declaration says, we should have to assert that all men are born free and equal, and we would have to fight for Negro," and he doesn't say Negro, equality. "Better abide by the Constitution, the bulwark of slavery, and stay in the Union." Many Northerners, on the other hand, believed that the Constitution had betrayed the promises of the Declaration. William Lloyd Garrison saw the Constitution as the source and parent of all other atrocities, a covenant with death and an agreement with hell. Others in the North saw the grander purpose of proving to the world the experiment in Republican self-government. Based on the principles expressed in the Declaration, he thought that those could work. Lincoln saw it too. In his second annual message to Congress, he said, "Through our actions now, we shall nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope of earth." Lincoln saw that the Constitution must be, by necessity, be the subordinate document. Man cannot create laws to control the equality of men, that which it has not been granted. But for the South, there remains only one alternative if slavery is to be protected: deny the basic but abstract truth of the Declaration that all men are created equal at all times. The fragment continues by calling for its audience to recall the sacrifices of the Founding Fathers during the Revolution. Lincoln continues, "No oppressed people will fight and endure as our fathers did without the promise of something better than a mere change of masters. Sacrifices are made and justified because of revolutionary ideals stated in the Declaration that had the effect of unifying the people. Ideas worth dying for." Lincoln has this ongoing internal dialogue that continues to evolve as he speaks and writes and confronts white Southerners. Southerners whose main goal is to marginalize the principles of natural rights as they are championed in the Declaration. Frederick Douglass saw the promise of something better. He remembered teaching himself to read using the Declaration and hoping that its ideals would apply to him someday. After Lincoln has laid down the beginnings of his argument, he returns to answer Stevens' original rejoinder. Lincoln's genius is that he uses Stevens' original Bible verse as a metaphor against him. The assertion of that principle at that time was the word fitly spoken, which has proved an apple of gold to us. The word, which is more valuable and sound and appropriately spoken, is the message of the Declaration, the so-called apple of gold, that which has secured our freedom and prosperity, and that which prevents tyranny. It is the central idea in our political public opinion, the equality of all. It appeals to something deeper than parties or policies. The Union and the Constitution are the picture of silver that has subsequently framed the apples of gold, the Declaration, built and created by men to protect that which comes first, the more valuable commodity of liberty to all. The picture was made not to conceal or destroy the apple, but to adorn and preserve it. Jefferson and Madison, in conversations with each other, called the Constitution the first of the best guides to the Declaration, the fundamental act of union between the states. The picture was made for the apple, not the apple for the picture. For the South to accept this fact would be to deny their very existence. Lincoln finishes by admonishing the nation to be vigilant, preserve both the apple and the frame surrounding it. And he finishes up by saying, "So let us act, that neither picture or apple shall ever be blurred, or bruised, or broken. And that we may so act, we must study and understand the points of danger." And for Lincoln, the danger for Lincoln is that although a civil war may remove the slavery from our midst, the underlying causes will still remain. People have to treat the Declaration as the truth, the backbone of our country, and defend its principles against those legal positivists who view the law as right, no matter how unjust.